everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about an iceberg model, something that you must have heard of if you've done design research or systemic design. So we're going to understand what an iceberg model is, why is it called an iceberg model, and then we're going to look at two examples to understand how you can use it in your problem statement and to identify and to break down a problem. So, bigger picture, iceberg model is used to go to root causes of a problem, to break down a problem into events, patterns, underlying structures, and mental models, to actually go down to the root cause of it, to see the different levels of it and what's happening below the surface. So, as you might already know, that an iceberg is only 10% above the surface of the water. The 90% body of an iceberg is actually below the surface of the water that you can't even see. So we use this framework and we call it the iceberg model because most of the times what we see, the problems that are happening around us, is what's happening. These are the observable behaviors or actions that you see around yourself. We call these events. The second part, as you go below the surface of the problem, we come to a question which is what's happening over time. What are the patterns? What are the trends? What are things that are consistently happening? What are some behaviors that are leading to these events which you see in your surroundings? Below patterns are the underlying structures. So, what is influencing this behavior? What are the structures that encourage this pattern? And below the underlying structures, we have the mental models, which I call the root causes, which are more to do with the society and how we are as a community. So the question is how and what beliefs stimulate that behavior, and what are the cultural beliefs and the social stigmas, or it could be a lot of things that are leading to those underlying structures, which are leading to patterns, which are leading to events that you see happening around you. So I'm going to take an example of the fashion industry and see how fashion industry is contributing to climate change, how it's a huge contributor in the waste industry. It contributes almost 10% to the landfills. And this is an iceberg that me and my classmate made in a class to understand how iceberg models work in my intro to strategic design and management class. So the overall problem is textile waste in landfills. The events for this problem is that there is overproduction, there is overconsumption, there's poor quality of clothing because of which you need to discard your clothes very often, and that's why they end up in landfills. And there are unfair labor practices. So if you see Sheen, how underpaid the laborers are according to statistics, only they get paid only $20 a day for all days of work, and we all know that Shein has very poor quality of clothes. You usually wear them a couple of times and then throw them away. You can't even give it to someone else. There's overconsumption because of fast fashion. Every few months the fashion is changing. Every 15 days you see something new in the market, and who is buying all of these clothes? There is so much overproduction and overconsumption, because of which these textiles are eventually ending up in the landfills. So this was the event. This is something that you see around yourself when you talk about fast fashion. Shein, H&M, Zara, all these names come into your mind, and this is what is observable. This is what you're seeing. So when we go under the surface of the water, now we're trying to find out what are the patterns, like what is happening over time that is leading to these events. So there is overall lack of consideration of the environmental impact, because it's so cheap and it's so easy to produce so many clothes. You just produce so many more of them. So there is zero consideration of how much we're digging into the earth, how much water a pair of jeans is required to make, and what will happen when these clothes do not degrade for a very long time. What will happen when we use harsh chemicals to our body, to the soil, to the ocean animals? No one cares about that. There's lack of accountability. There is not enough legislation, there is not enough accountability from these big companies, and so things have been just under the carpet. There is lack of transparency. Because of lack of accountability, no one is required to be transparent about their numbers. There is transparency to some extent, but uh, that's not the whole picture. And what you see, what the sustainability efforts are, is barely a drop in the ocean. And there's a whole larger picture going behind. There is resource exploitation, cheap and easy, because these things are cheap and easily accessible. There is excess waste, there is easy labor, there is cheap labor. So these are all the patterns because of which you can easily overproduce clothes, you can easily overconsume them. Shein clothes are, just like you can find a good top for $100, 100 rupees, 150 rupees, and yeah, so these are the patterns that are leading to these events. Then we go further down the iceberg, then we go deeper and try to identify what are the behaviors that are influencing these patterns, what is happening over time, what are encouraging and reinforcing these behaviors. So some of the things that we identified were people are not mindful, and there is a lot of greenwashing happening around, as I just mentioned. All these Adidas, recycled H&M, return your clothes. There's a lot of greenwashing happening, that they're doing so much for the planet, they're so sustainable, they're so eco-friendly, but it's not really true. You think they are, but that's not what really is happening. This globalization, people want to fit in, people want to buy more clothes as compared to what you would do or what your parents would buy 50 years ago, because we want to fit in, we want to be trendy, we want to wear what other influencers, celebrities, our classmates, our co-workers are wearing. There is lack of recycling, and there are everything is driven towards profit. Everything is profit driven, and the company goals are very short sighted. They want immediate profit, they want a lot of supply, they want to market everything and earn as much money as they can. And yeah, they have short sighted goals. So these are some of the structures. And then we go to the final, to the mental models, like what is leading to these structures which are building these patterns and which are leading to these events. Some of them are customers don't care. Customers are like, why will I buy a hand stitched cotton linen shirt for 500 rupees when I can get one on Shein for 70 rupees? Like, I don't care. I want a cheap cloth. I want a cheap clothing. There are unethical practices because laborers have been exploited, nature has been exploited. All of that comes under unethical practices. Another mental model is that there's a lot of disposable income. People are earning, like, it's very easy to afford all of these clothings now than it was probably a couple of years back. Now there's a lot of things available because of globalization and consumerism and whatnot. Like, you can just get these things for cheaper, so you just keep on buying things that you don't need. There is financial value. The society is driven by materialistic possessions. So as I mentioned earlier a couple of minutes back, this is one of the very big and important mental model. Like, if you're trying to solve for this fast fashion and textiles ending up in landfills problem, society driven by materialistic possessions is a big thing. People have walk-in closets, they have like 25 pair of shoes, 5 pairs of running shoes, heels, everything. Like, you just need those materialistic possessions which people didn't want earlier. And of course, easy way out. Everyone wants an easy way out. This easy way out applies to the customers, to the people who are producing, to the people who are working, to the harsh chemicals that you're using. You just don't want to put in extra money or anything additional to curb this problem. So this is how we broke the iceberg model for this problem. To understand the usage of iceberg model better, I'm going to use one more example from a presentation that I made for the same class, Intro to Strategic Design and Management. I was looking at Starbucks and what are some problems that Starbucks is currently facing, and I tried to form a problem statement and then run that problem statement through this framework of an iceberg model to understand what are the root causes. So let me read out the problem statement to you. The problem statement is: Starbucks faces operational inefficiencies that harm customer experience and employee productivity. Overburdened baristas, outdated workflows, and inefficient mobile order systems result in long wait times, abandoned orders, and reduced store performance. So, considering this problem statement at hand, what are some of the events? Some of the events that we see around us, what's happening around us, is that there are long wait times at stores. If you walked into a Starbucks, you know that it should not take that much time to get a coffee made. There are a lot of abandoned mobile orders, even though Starbucks has a great mobile app, but people are not coming to pick up their mobile orders because of a lot of reasons. Employees are stressed because there is a lot of workload, and there have been a lot of protests. People are getting fired, people are also resigning. There's a lot of stress, employees have a lot to manage. And of course, with all of this, there is customer dissatisfaction. We see this because we see the Starbucks numbers going down, we see the Starbucks in news every day, and this is what is happening around us. These are the events, these are the problems on the surface, above the surface of the water. When we go down to the patterns, some of the patterns are that increase in mobile orders but operational processes. There is like a lot of mobile orders that are happening, but the operational processes haven't been able to keep up with these mobile orders because you forgot to look at that side of the system. The operations are not scaled proportionately. There is a lot of seasonal traffic spikes, and this leads to very unmanageable surges. Employee turnover due to operational challenges and dissatisfaction. So when we try to go deeper and look at some structures that are leading to these patterns, are that staff is not trained properly. There is limited staff training. Stores lack sufficient technology, especially during high traffic hours, and there is inefficient feedback system. So even when we see these problems as a customer and we see these things happening around us, Starbucks is not willing to take our feedback and do something about it. So because of these inefficient loops and systems, these problems are just there, and it's just a structure that is leading to all of these patterns and events. And when we go down deeper to the mental models to see what is the root cause, what is the deeper problem that is giving rise to all of these things that we see above the surface, is the mental model. Focus on expansion over optimization, something that a lot of companies are running for these days. There is a reliance on app and digital solutions without accounting for human and operational factors. Like, you just can't make an app, and you can't hold technology to solve for everything. There are human actors in it, there are so many people involved in it. Customers, employees have a one-on-one employees are the ones who have a direct contact with the customers. So what about that? Who is handling the machine, who is handling the kiosk, who's making sure that your customer is able to handle the kiosk? So just by making it technology, putting it in your face, doesn't mean that you're solving for a large problem. And lastly, and most importantly, profit over employee welfare. Starbucks doesn't want to invest in their employees. Starbucks doesn't care for their employees being happy. So you have limited staff, you have a lot of issues like that. So this was another problem, and how I broke it into all of these in this iceberg framework to understand the problem better. So you kind of find out what's hidden and what's above the surface. And in systems design, this is a very common and one of the first approaches that you take to solve a problem, to break it down, to have some clarity. And when you're trying to, as a designer, as a researcher who is trying to build something more meaningful, you have to understand how our society works, how our culture works, and how we are full of biases. What's happening? What are the larger motives? Is everything about efficiency? What about slow and sustainable growth? So this model, I hope you understand this model, and I hope through these two examples which I personally worked on, you were able to get some idea of how you can also use this framework in your practices. Honestly, it's not that complicated, and it's pretty straightforward. You'll also find a lot of different variations of iceberg. I mean, not different variations, but slightly different explanations on different websites and different videos, but this is the core, and this is what it essentially is for. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Do let me know if you have any other questions or concerns, or if there's anything about the iceberg model that you would want to ask me. And see you in the next video.